Hello.
Hey everyone, how's everybody doing today? Good? Okay? Not so great? Alright. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm so excited you guys taking the time being here for me and for Shakar. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. So, my name is Xinran. The X in my name pronounced like SH. So I'm the founder of the Data Engineer Things community, and running this community is actually my side hustle because I have this passion for creating resources and a place for data engineers connect and learn from each other. And of course, I need money to feed my family. So I also work as a data engineer at Netflix. And right next to me is Shakar. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, thank you. And I also appreciate you all being here. And I just wanted to say it's a real honor for me to do it with you. I mean, Shinran and I have been sort of working together for the past 1 year, and I absolutely adore everything that you do. In our first conversation, Shinran, when we were talking about the data engineering things, and I asked her, why do you do this? She said, I wanted to have this resource that I never had when I started my career. And that was, for me, one of my most relatable things. I've been in data for about 20 years now. I started as a DBA and have grown up the ranks, and I've been in data and leadership, but I never had that sort of community that you've built, which is amazing. So thank you. And in my last role, I was director of data engineering at Meta. I was leading the data engineering function at Meta or Facebook in London, growing it from 4 data engineers to more than 200. And I've been the director of data engineering for all of Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger's trust and safety problems. I left Facebook about a year ago to become an independent advisor. And today I just work with companies, helping them with the data journey, working with data startups, and I'm also working with a few individuals on their career growth and their career journey. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Shakar. So before we kick off this discussion, I want to start it with a story. It was several years ago. I was working as a data engineer at a company, and we were hiring for a new data engineer. And this person we really like, he accepted the offer. And right before he started, we decided to grab coffee to connect. And he asked me, what is this most frustrating thing you had with your team or your company? And I was thinking, all right, you already accept your offer, so I'm going to be transparent with you. And I told him that my most frustrating thing with the team is that as data engineers, I feel invisible. I really don't know how many people at the company actually know that this data engineering team exists. And when I told him, and I thought, okay, this is not going to be great, but I want to be honest with him. And he told me, actually, isn't it like that everywhere? So this is actually one of the things that Shakar and I want to talk about, because this is one of the most common challenges that data engineering teams face these days. It's feeling invisible and not getting a seat at the table. So Shakar, why do you think that's the case? And what would be your suggestion for those teams who's facing this problem?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's a question that came up a lot in my career. All of my data engineering teams and my data teams throughout my career have always had that challenge. It's not new and it's not unique by any means. Um, I think that there is something that data people need to understand about the dynamics with other teams that sometimes I think they either didn't spend time thinking about or they struggle to accept it. But the reality we operate in is this, right? If you want to build a house, you only need builders, right? You need people who can lay bricks one on top of the other. You need electricians, you need plumbers. Like, these are the people who build. You don't need anything else. And the reason I say that is because sometimes there are other people who are involved, like architects, interior designers. There are people who think about the flow in the house, the energies and all of that. And they feel like, they don't get their fair share. But the reality is you don't need these people to build a house. Yeah, it may not be an amazing house. It may not be beautiful. It may not be super functional, but there will be a house. And in our reality, I think that software engineers are like the builders, right? You can build any software without data, almost any software, right? You can build without data. Metrics help you make it better. Metrics can help you do experimentation. They can help you understand if you have product market fit. They can help you understand if you're heading in the right direction, identify issues. Like, data is super critical, but it's not essential for building the software, right? And that's something we have to realize, because when we moved to our new house, I started working with an interior designer, and she helped us think about the house. And it's been an amazing experience. Like, she was thinking about lines, and she was thinking about colors and how different things in the house connect together. And that was a very different way of thinking that I'd never seen before. And I'm never gonna, move into another house again without getting the help and support of interior designer. But I had to see it once first to understand the value, to understand, oh, okay, so that's what you do, and that's why I need to work with you. And I think that data people need to understand that once people see the value, once they show the value and they show why is it that you need to work with data engineers, why is it that important that you have good data foundations, that you have metrics, I think the rest will come naturally. And I've been in teams when I joined, people didn't even know that team existed, and after less than a year, people are asking, hey, we want to give you more headcount because we need that team to grow. It's becoming a bottleneck, right? So that's the difference between these two states, is people have seen the value. They now know why you exist and why is it important, and they want to work with you. And unfortunately, it's on us sometimes to show that value and to help them understand.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And to me, part of whether you can get a seat at the table as a data engineer really have to do with whether you can make that connection between your technical work and also the business impact. To be honest, I feel so lucky in a way that I had a manager who very intentionally taught me that when I got my first job as a data engineer. Here's the three things that my first manager taught me. When I first got started as a data engineer, which was my first full-time job after graduation, and she always invited me to the meetings that she had with different business partners. At that point, the data engineering team I was part of was supporting marketing and membership, and she always take me to those meetings that she had with business partner. And at first, honestly, I didn't quite understand why I had to be there. I just need to know, okay, where I need to move the data to. I thought that was the most important thing at the time. But from those meetings, I get to learn so much about the business problems we were trying to solve at the time. And I also made those personal connections with those partners we have. There were data scientists, there were business partners who were making decisions about how we should be advertising for our products and how we want to distribute in different social medias. I learned so much from those meetings, and also I made those connections. That was really helpful for me later in the career. And another thing that she made me do at that point was giving presentations to everybody. I was literally giving presentations like every week. It was sometimes giving presentation about my work to my teammates, and sometimes was giving presentations to the data scientists or to the business partners. At first, I didn't really know why am I spending so much time creating slides. I could be writing more data pipelines. But later on, I realized that was when I was making that connection between my technical work and the business, so that they understand what it took to enable those business initiatives that they were trying to achieve. My joke was at that point that my most fluent language was PowerPoint, was not Python. But anyway, it was a joke. But also, that it was such an intentional thing that she made me do, and I realized it was such a valuable skill that you need to build as an engineer if you want to make that connection between your work and business impact. And one last thing, I just remember when I first joined the company and the team, she gave me this list of 20 people that I need to have one-on-one with. And I was an introvert. I was so intimidated because I was like, those are strangers. I don't know them, and I have to go grab coffee with them. I already go to work meetings with them. Why am I having one-on-one with them? But then realize that those are the important small talks you want to have with people outside the work meeting. Because sometimes during those talks, people seem to be more vulnerable. They want to tell you about what's the challenge they have with their data so that you really get to know their pain points. And also you get those personal connections that it just make it easier to work with them later. To summarize, those are the three things that I learned about making connection between your work and business impact. One is that you want to make your work visible to other people. For example, business partners or your other data partners, through showing off your work, what you have done, how that enable those business. And also at the same time, go to those business meetings, understand what's the thing that you want to enable them to be able to do through, making data available. And third thing is, never ignore the values of having one-on-one with the people you work with.
Yeah, and I love it that she made you present things to people. I think that's one of the most effective ways to actually tell people what you do. And I think it's not just about presenting, it's the way you talk about your work makes a big difference. And I don't know why, but a lot of data practitioners, especially data engineers, the way they talk about their work is not right. Like there's something wrong about it. And I'll give you an example. Like I'll actually tell you a story. A couple of years ago, me and my wife wanted to build a cabinet for my daughter in a room because she was 3 years old at the time and she had a lot of stuff in the room and she didn't have a lot of space to play. And we bought this big IKEA cabinet that I thought, okay, I'm going to build it in 2 hours and spend 2 days building it. And as I was building it, I was reflecting on an interview I had just had a couple of days before with a data engineer, and I asked them, okay, tell me about your work, tell me what you do. And they said, I use Python, I use Spark, I use Scala, which is the equivalent of you asking me, what did you do this weekend? And I'll tell you, I used hammer, I used nails, I used a screwdriver, which is true. I built a cabinet, but that's not the most important thing. Like, that's not even interesting, and that doesn't tell the story. But for some reason, that's the way a lot of people, a lot of data engineers talk about the work. They describe the tools that they use. I don't know why, but that's what they do. And then some people, some data engineers, the more advanced ones that I've met, they tell you, I build a pipeline, I build a dashboard, which is the equivalent of you asking me, Shahar, what did you do this weekend? And I tell you, I built a cabinet, which is true. That's a better description of what had happened that weekend. But the best data practitioners I've worked with, and not just data, but any sort of professionals I've worked with, when you ask them what you do, they say, oh, so we have a problem with the marketing funnel. We're acquiring the wrong customers, and we're basically paying too much money on customers that their lifetime value is too low. So I'm building this pipeline to basically bring all the data in one place, and I'm going to build a funnel that we can slice and dice by different dimensions. And I'm basically going to be able to identify the points in the funnel where we're spending money acquiring the wrong customers so that we can optimize our marketing funnel. That's basically telling what is the problem that you're solving, right? A lot of, when you talk to product managers, that's how they talk about the problem. They explain, okay, we have these situations, this is why we do this. Software engineers, in a lot of cases, they also talk like that. Not always, but in many cases, they explain, okay, this is the problem I have, this is what I'm trying to solve. So I think if you get into the habit of talking about your work in the right way and talking about it in the right order, I think it will be more interesting and inspiring to people, and they would be able to connect with that. Because if you just say, I'm building a pipeline, people frankly just don't understand why is that important.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That also reminds me, I did this resume critique session at one point with a recruiter I work with. And that's actually also true when you're creating your resume, create your narrative, is that you not only want to talk about how big is this data pipeline, how much data you're moving, but also mentioning the business impact you're making with the technical work you're doing there too.
100%. And I wanted to ask you, Xinran, actually, because a lot of people ask me the question, which company should I go to as a data engineer? Should I go to big tech companies? Should I go to startups? Should I go to smaller companies? Should I be a consultant? Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to be honest, I had to make those decisions at several different times in my career as well. And to be honest, like making those decisions are actually really important because those companies are indeed different. I did have experience working at like kind of middle-sized company, tech company, and also startup. My experience at startup, which is actually true in most startup or smaller company, is that if you get hired as a data engineer, you are not just a data engineer. You have to wear 4 or 5 different hats. You're a data engineer. You also have to work on different data infrastructure. You're probably also data analyst. You're probably also data scientist as well. So
and you're going to be alone.
Yeah, and also you have to basically build that breadth of knowledge. And to be honest, it depends on what you want to do as well. Like for example, when you work at a smaller company where you get to exercise and learn so many different skills, in a way, it's helpful for you to really see what is kind of the upstream of data. What does it take to build a reliable or scalable data infrastructure? Also, at the same time, when you wear the hats as a data analyst or data scientist, you kind of build those empathy for your data consumers as well. You'll start to realize, hey, this data set I was building, it didn't work, and why? And that was also very important experience to have. Whereas at a bigger company, your role as a data engineer are typically a lot more in-depth and focused because at a bigger company, they have a lot more people working in data. You're going to be part of a data engineer team, and you're going to work with maybe a data platform team, a data infrastructure team, a dedicated data scientist team. So as part of that, you get to be a lot more focused as data engineer and really build those skills in depth. And to me, I don't think there's an absolute right answer for everybody because there's some pros and cons and different growth opportunities for those type of roles. And what's the most important thing here is to be intentional when you choose your next career move, because they don't offer the same growth opportunity for you. Like for example, if you are a junior data engineer, my recommendation for you is to really find a team that you can be surrounded by people who are more experienced for you, so you can get those mentorship and really learn those best practice. Whereas if you join a small company, and a lot of times you might be the first data engineer there, and you really don't get as much mentorship. And another thing is you might be managed by somebody who was never a data engineer. So that would be one example, like where you might be in a situation that you might want to go to a bigger company where there will be more senior people who you can learn from. Also another scenario would be, let's say, if you want to transition from an IC, individual contributor, to a leadership role. And when you are evaluating all this opportunity in front of you, you want to think about, will this role provide me the opportunity to become a leader? For example, do I get to mentor other people? Do I get to lead in projects? Or is this team going to grow fast enough that I could be transitioning into a manager? So those are also the factors that not all the teams will be able to provide you those growth opportunities.
Yeah, I love it. And I'll add to that 2 more quick things. One is there are some skills that are always important, but in bigger companies, they become even more important, like communication skills, influence, the ability to work with different people, collaboration, conflict resolution, things like that may be still important, but less in much smaller companies. So think about that and choose a role that plays to your strength. And the other thing I will say is that there is one big advantage to bigger company, and that's the scope that you can have and the impact you can have. And just to give one example, I remember an interview I've listened to with Jeff Bezos in 2021, where he said that Amazon basically cut down on 7% of the plastic that they use in the non-recyclable plastic that they use in their packaging. And that was the equivalent of 100,000 metric tons a year. So big companies do have the advantage of scale. And then even though you might be working on something that is quite narrow, the impact you can have on the world is massive, right? And if that's something that's appealing to you and that's something that you look for, and I'm not some people are being cynical about that, but you can really have big positive impact on the world just because you work on large scale problems.
Yeah, talking about like making career transition or a career choice, I'm curious. One question that people usually have is that should I stay as IC or should I become manager? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a good question. I get that. I get that a lot, and sorry, I get that a lot. And I think the first thing I'll say is play to your strengths, right? Think about what are the things that you like doing, what are the things that you don't like doing. If you really like just sitting down and coding for 6 hours, not talking to anyone, then you probably want to be an IC, right? Or tech lead. But if you like coaching, mentoring people, if you like presenting things, if you like solving conflict and you like organizational dynamics and you genuinely enjoy that, then management is a good option for you. I will also say that there are some things that are part of the everybody starts as an IC, right? So the question is, do you want to transition to a manager role or not? And I will say there are a few things that are actually part of the role of every manager that you need to ask yourself, are you comfortable with that? And would you be willing to do that? So for example, performance management, right? Generally think about that situation. I've had people who were interested in management transitions. And when I was talking to them and I said, would you be willing to manage performance of a low performance and potentially even let them go if they're not able to perform at the level required? They were like, no, I'm absolutely not able to do that. Hiring people can be difficult for some people. I mean, I know people who genuinely don't like the feeling of interviewing somebody and having to make this decision about their career, and to be able to say yes or no on someone's career. They just don't like it. So these are things that are inherently part of the role of every manager, and you just need to ask yourself, would I be enjoying doing these things? Would I be able to do these things?
Yeah, totally. And also another thing is that you don't have to be a manager to learn leadership skill as well. Because when you are a senior IC role, there's so many opportunities that you could also pick up leadership skill. For example, how do you influence people on your team to work towards the same goal? How do you influence your partners to get buy-in so they understand that this is a project that will be really good for the long term, even though it doesn't enable any new business initiative? And those are the skills that you could also build as part being an IC as well, without actually managing a team.
100%. And I'll say that when you work for big tech companies, right, it's very, very common to work with people who are at senior IC level, whose level is the equivalent of a director, senior director, even a VP. I've worked with people like that. They are some of the best leaders I've worked with. And except for the fact that they didn't have a team, they didn't have an organization, they were absolutely leading. They were taking some of the most difficult challenges and problems that nobody else could solve, and they would be the ones leading it. So I know we only have 5 minutes left. I wanted to ask you, Xinran, what do you think makes a great data engineer?
It's a great question, and to be honest, I had very different answers kind of throughout my career. When I was a junior engineer, honestly, I thought being a good data engineer means that to say yes to everything that comes my way and get things done as fast as possible. And at that point, I thought that was what a good engineer looks like. But now, when I think about what it means to be a great data engineer, it's actually those who are good at saying no to those requests that come into your way. And to be honest, what's the hardest thing about saying no is to build that trust with the people you're working with, so that even if you're saying no, they know that you are doing it for the good, for the company, for the bigger team, even though you're not saying yes to things. And there's different aspect to it. For example, you want your partners to consult with you before they say yes to the things that come to their way. That means that you want to get involved in the process as early as possible, so that they get your opinions and input before they commit to anything. Because some of the worst thing you can run into that your partner come to you like, hey, I need to get this dashboard or metrics to the executive this week. Can you get it done for me? And you'll learn that this is not possible because we don't even have the data available. And that creates friction. However, when you realize it, it's because that they did not involve you early in the project to get your opinions on the data availability and your bandwidth, your priority, and also the level of efforts on those type of things. And also another thing is saying no also means pushback. A lot of times people might come to you with requests like, hey, can you build a data engineering system for me to solve this problem? But a lot of times you'll realize that after you get to know the problem you're trying to solve, you'll realize the initial proposal was actually not the best thing to do. So sometimes you'll have to push back on that to say that, hey, maybe that's not the best thing to do. Can we solve it upstream or solve it downstream? And being able to push back on those requests is also a really important skill to have.
I love it. I'll just add to that that will be the last story before we leave, but just one story from the best data engineer I've worked with in my entire career, the person I consider to be the best data engineer. When we worked at Meta, there's a piece of infrastructure that's called product catalog. We were working on ads, and it's a piece of infrastructure, but that basically enables you to upload an entire catalog of products to Meta so that you can create ads based on these products. And if you think of big advertisers like Amazon, for example, or Shopify, they have billions of products, right? They don't want to have to create ads for each and every specific product. They just want to upload a catalog and say, these are all of my products. Now here are a bunch of signals, and then we want you to show this ad to this person and dynamically create them. So this data engineer started working on data catalog, and a few weeks after he started working with them, he came back to me in one of our one-to-ones and he said, Shahar, I'm really concerned about that team. And I said, oh, why are you concerned about that team? Tell me more. And he said, because they are prioritizing the wrong things. They set the wrong goals. And I said, what do you mean they set the wrong goals? They're building a catalog. And he said, yeah, but I'll tell you why I'm saying that. I joined the team. I started trying to create a catalog in the UI. I tried to upload a bunch of CSVs and all of that to create the catalog. I get error messages. It's not working. It's failing. It's slow. So I created a lot of bugs, and the team is just not prioritizing that. So I asked the software engineers, why are you not solving the bugs? Why are you not fixing it? It's production bugs. And they said, oh, the UI is not a problem. And how the UI cannot be a problem? There are two ways to create a catalog, UI and API. How can the UI not be, like, how can that not be a priority? Of course it's a priority. That's how advertisers upload their catalogs, right? And he said, I didn't understand that until I looked at the team's top-line dashboard, and I saw that the key metric, the one that they're going on, is the number of items in catalog. And if that's your key metric, that's what you're trying to do, then you don't care about small businesses who use the UI to upload. You only care about the big ones who use the API. And I said, okay, I agree with your assessment. What are you going to do about it? And he said, oh, that's fine. I've already spoken to the PM and the engineering manager and data scientist. And I told them, guys, you're completely wrong. And I've proposed a different metric, and this is what they're going to use for their goaling for next half. And it's a data engineer who did that. So the ability to step back, to look at the big picture, and to think broadly, like, your job is not just to build a pipeline. Your job is to make the business better. If you can do that, then you're an amazing data engineer.
Yeah.
And I think we need to wrap here. It's about time. But thank you, everyone, so much for being with us today. Thank you, Xinran, for coming all the way here and for doing this. And please, let's connect on LinkedIn and let's continue the conversation if you're not part of data engineering things.
Yeah, thank you, Shahar. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And just a quick shout out, we have a meetup at 6 p.m. today. It's for the data engineers and community. So if you have time, please feel free to join us. Thank you.